I set up the campaign, book up $5,000 of ad spend and no sales. It was very painful.
Hey everyone, my name is Sasha and I've helped over 2,000 new brand founders launch new e-commerce businesses over the last 5 years. And I'm joined by Hamen, who is the senior media buyer and head coach at Ecom Capital. He's managed over $30 million in ad spend and generated over $120 million in sales through e-commerce sales alone.
PayPal was refunding customers. We paid twice for the goods and for the so it's one of my biggest scars.
I was like, yeah, I've got a little bit of cash in the bank. I'm not going to learn that skill set. I'm an entrepreneur, and I went and found this agency, 3.5 months, $10,000 in total, like expense, no sales whatsoever. Today, we're going to cover off on the 9 deadly sins of sort that you and I have experienced through the years of being in e-commerce and seeing things that most people don't want to see. Let's jump right in. Talk to me about one of the biggest things that you've found, biggest mistake that you've made personally, or biggest failure that you've made personally.
Absolutely. So first, most of the time when you do, like, people think about, you have a lot of experience. It's just, you make a lot of mistakes. That's the thing. So I've been doing mistakes. I'm just looking at, I will never do this again. It's almost like that's how you learn. It's really doing the mistakes, but learning from them as soon as possible. That's why I think people are most of the time afraid of failure. Like, I don't want to fail. You actually should seek failing, but you just need to learn from it. That's probably the missing part. And in terms of like mistakes I did, and I did many, when I kind of close my eyes and think about things of the past, I remember one of the first things that would kind of like just pop in my head would be the links. Like when I'm running an ad account and I just don't take the time, like I'm very much rushed and I set up the campaign. This actually happened to me a day where I literally set up the campaign, went and just, slept and woke up and was like, hey, we're spending $5,000. I was scaling this account. We're actually at that level, we're spending 20K a day. And I was looking at, we need to really bump the budget, set up the campaign, very big budget. And I was using cost cap. And then I would wake up and I see no sales. And I was very surprised. I was like, there's a problem. $5,000 of ad spend and no sales. So that was for me, like, it was very painful, to be honest. Like just seeing, like, I see no gap, and I panicked, looked at the ad account, like there's something missing. I look at the store and I can pull the data with Shopify. So I was seeing all the traffic going to a page, but there was nothing. And I was like, okay, so there is a problem. And I went back to the ads and I noticed that I just copy paste the wrong link and I added in all the campaigns that I launched. And I used to really take the time to, like, in the past when I was just doing this, I used to take the time, but not necessarily to that critical level or like thinking about, I'm going to lose something. It was more of, if it's working, it should be good to just set up the campaign and just getting going. So that was something I would never forget. Just like that $5,000 of, with no sales. So that was the biggest mistake I did, I would say, in the last 10 years plus.
And so what's the process that you follow now to make sure that doesn't happen? Do you like checklist on things, double, triple, quadruple check? How do you make sure that doesn't happen anymore based on the lessons you've learned?
So this is something, because of that pain, you actually, like right now, before saying anything, I'll look at all the links, I'll look at the copy, but I have an obsession around the links. Because of this particular mistake, I actually would look at everything, but for the links, like I would double check, but for the links, I will triple, quadruple check because of that one mistake. It's almost like it's just a pain that would never go away because you see it like, I don't want to do this again. And I think you kind of experienced this in the past where you do something and you just, this is like, you will never forget it. It just sticks with you.
Well, I think the thing for myself, I recall, this was probably 3 years ago, I believe now. And this is when we were kind of like looking to really scale the fishing business that we had. And the initial kind of like performance at that moment in time was probably around like $30,000 to $40,000 a month. So around about that level, not exactly like, big by any means, but it was kind of stable. We were just on the Meta platform. We were on a profit percentage, probably like 10% some months, maybe a little bit higher, sometimes break even if marketing kind of expense went up. And for whatever reason, I was kind of like, doing some work and experimenting with like different platforms. And there was this idea where I got contacted by like this Pinterest rep that was like, hey, like we can communicate with you directly. We can come in and show you like all these practices. You have a very Pinterest focused brand. And it's so funny because I say these things after doing them. And also like I say to so many people inside of, our community, like focus on one platform, just do one platform, just do one platform. And it's funny because like I had to learn what that means the hard way in terms of like testing Pinterest, and then we tested TikTok ads, paid variety, and then we tested Google. And so what happened was we had a situation where it was like Meta was kind of underperforming and it was kind of okay. The creatives were the main blocker in performance. And so we took what was, this underperforming one platform, multiplied it across into what became 4 platforms: Meta, Google, Pinterest, and TikTok. And the thing is, all of them were paid. And so like it accelerated the losses within the company, because it was like, well, maybe more of the audience are on Pinterest, so perhaps we should capture and use these different image ads on Pinterest. Or maybe we should, film more content that's like TikTok variety and then push it into Spark ads on TikTok, not doing organic at all, but just purely focusing on paid. And I specifically remember going through that period of time and losing so much sleep, because I was just like waking up in the middle of the night thinking, so the one platform is not working, and then you just multiplied it across all those other ones. I'm like, what are you supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to measure success? How do I know, like, oh, well, I guess this is a new platform, so you need to let it run for a few months. Oh, we need to collect some data. And then what happens is, because it's a new platform, you start to like put more attention on it because it's fun and it's exciting. And you're like, oh, we just got 5,000 like views on our reel overnight, or on our TikTok overnight. Maybe that means it's good, and so you start paying attention to it, and then you stop paying attention to Meta, and then the Meta platform started to underperform even more, and it was a very painful, probably 5 to 6 months of juggling 4 or 5 of these platforms, to the point where it was like, cut everything. We went all in on Meta, and I just ran some Google branded search campaigns specifically for that particular name of the company, and that was it. But it's hilarious to think, when you have one platform that's not working and you're not getting the ROAS that you want, and it must be the platform. I should go and multiply the amount of pressure and pain and money that I'm going to lose by diversifying. It's insane. It's insane.
I think it's actually, when you think about it, it happens both ways. When you also have a good situation where the business is actually very profitable, you think about, maybe I should launch a new brand. Maybe I should do a new product. And I've seen this also go into this direction where you feel like right now it's good, but you don't necessarily project things. So when you launch the new brand or the new product, you lost on the momentum because you actually went into another direction. That's why I believe that if you do multiple things most of the time and you're not doing them at scale, you're actually just creating more problems and you're adding more complexity on a situation that might actually be very fluctuative. So most of the time, my recommendation, stick to one platform. Like what you mentioned, if it's working for Meta, or even if it's not working, stick to one platform, fix it, and you're going to get much more returns. Because I know you did these mistakes in the past, but it's really trying to learn from them. That's how you could really scale and get to the next level.
Well, it's interesting. I think that probably leads me to like the lesson of this mistake myself, and it's similar. I was speaking to some founders of this company, and they've done in the last probably like what is it now, 12 years, they've done about $9 billion in sales, and some of the founders are coming along to the event in August. And so we shared this kind of common conversation around what happens is, when you reach a point where your direct-to-consumer on Meta, for example, begins to become disproportionately inefficient. You know what I mean? You've scaled that thing, you're at like 200,000 a month, and you're like 500,000 a month, well, whatever that number is, and you're like, it seems like the returns are starting to diminish. It seems as though like, then it's like at that point, explore platform change. But it's just like, only do it based on like some form of problem with the amount of audience you can capture on the platform, and not just like, well, I saw this YouTube clip or I saw this Instagram clip and they said that, distribution in warehouses is a great idea. I'm going to go and do that. It's like, just stick to one thing, I think, is the main lesson that I took away from that. Yeah. Share with me another one of the main things that you've had suffering from over the last 10 years.
Suffering. That's really a good description, because it's really, you look at it from a perspective right now, we're analyzing it and it's good, but in the moment, it's really a lot of like, you're in pain. You're saying this is not working. And I think the same thing that you mentioned, when you're scaling and things are not working, or when you're thinking about, I want to do this new platform, but you still have problems with Meta. So those are situations where it's not necessarily fun, but we need to also use that in terms of like learning and growing. So the second thing would be for me, it's going to be around Meta, because obviously I have a lot of problems with Meta in the past in terms of ad account issues and things like that. So one of them was not having any backup accounts. So I was running an ad account. It was back in 2019, and I was the only admin in the business manager. So with Meta, you have the business manager, you have the ad account level. So I had the ad account working. I had actually another ad account, but I was the only admin. So they disabled my profile, the personal one, not necessarily the one like the ad account or the business manager. And it was very profitable. And I was increasing the ad spend. So I was very happy with the ad account. And then I wake up, same thing. I remember it was like almost like what's happening? Like the ad account seems to be working, the ads are working, but I can't adjust. Like I can't pause, I can't do anything. So when I saw that, I contacted Meta. They told me we need some information. Just like add your password and information. We're gonna get this done. I was like, how long is it gonna take? 5 business days. I'm like, I'm spending more than what I normally spend, and I can't pause and I can't do anything. And so I was really freaking out for like 24 hours. I was like, I didn't sleep. I was like, literally, what can I do? I was like in panic mode. And I can imagine right now someone scaling to 2,000, like amounts that they're not used to, and then this would happen right away. Like this was for me a shocker. So I had to go through it, and I actually talked to an agent like, hey, is there anything that I could do? It's like, why don't you have another admin? So it's a small fix, add another person. So I added the other person, like after getting back my account after 5 days, I got back, I added another person right away. And this is, I think, a very painful mistake, just running an account without backups, and particularly ad account backups, business manager backups. You can really have multiple pixels. So a lot of ways you could do this, but I was not aware of this.
And it's one of those things that, like, it's so funny because problems or challenges like that, you overlook them so quickly when they don't have any kind of like grip on you, or you're not in the thick of it, right? And it's like, and then it happens, and you literally like your whole life comes crashing down. You can't access this machine that's building your business, and you're like, why did I not think about this? It's like you feel like you're dying. So look, if you're listening to this right now, maybe pause it and go and add someone safe onto your business manager, onto your ad account, to prevent that stuff happening, because it is a nightmare when it happens. I've had it happen multiple times, and you're like, stomach's going inside out. You're like, oh my God, this has got to be the worst thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like, if you think about it, it's a small thing. It's just one action. And this is why when you're doing business, it's really about, can I learn from others that did these mistakes so I don't do it? Because you mentioned this, the panic, the fear, you don't want to be in that situation. And I remember I was literally looking at my account and thinking about, should I call the bank to cancel? Because I was not able to do anything.
I think one thing that's probably quite similar to that, where it sounds really good from the beginning of, like, starting the idea, and then you get into it, and then you're like, wait, what the heck was I thinking? So when I first started in any form of like online digital situation, I had this idea as like, I was an entrepreneur that was kind of like too good to learn advertising. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm too busy. You know what I mean? I've made a little bit of money. I think by that time I made like a few $100,000. It wasn't even like I hadn't really done anything. But this is probably the biggest thing that I recognize from that period is, and a lot of people get into this stage. So you're in that stage of probably like 100,000 to 500,000 per year in sales. And so in that stage, you're in a very vulnerable position because you think you're a lot better than you are, right? And that was me. I was like, oh, I've made some money, got some sales. Yeah, I've got a little bit of cash in the bank. I'm not going to do meta advertising. I'm not going to learn that skill set. I'm an entrepreneur, and I should delegate and find people to do things for me. That's what intelligent people do. And so I recall I went and found this agency to set up all these funnels for me, set up all these advertising campaigns for me, build all these adverts, and do the whole thing, right? And I remember sitting down in their office, they invited me into their boardroom for a big strategy session. They were like, cool, so what's the product? Yep, let's talk about the product. Who's the avatar? Yeah, anyone from, say, 18 to 55, anyone will be, good to you. And this was back in the day where you use audience targeting, very specific interest targeting. So there was no broad campaigns. There was no Advantage Plus at all. It was like specific kind of like targeting. And I remember going through that process and thinking like, cool, this is going to be great. Like, they're going to do their job. We're going to start spending money. I'm going to start making tons of money, because that's what you do when you start, advertising online. And I remember after the first couple of days, there was no sales. There was like nothing in terms of like revenue. I think the first week there was nothing. In the first 2 weeks there was nothing. And I remember just being like looking at my bank account, just like 1,250, 1,250, 1,250. And then the agency fees, several $1,000s per month. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, what is happening here? And I felt so helpless because I was like sitting in a situation where I was seeing all this money going out, no sales coming in. I'd get some random like report that I couldn't even understand anything. I was like, so does that mean, and this is in the day where there was no ChatGPT, there was like, you know what I mean? You can't just throw like a report in ChatGPT and say, tell me if this is good or bad. Tell me what this means. Like you can't do that. So it's like sitting there and being like, cost per CPM high. Okay, what does that mean? More creative. Oh, okay, are they going to do that? Am I going to do that? And so I had no idea. And so I let these campaigns run. I let these agencies do their thing for about 3.5 months. Approximately $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 in total like expense. No sales whatsoever. No sales. And I just didn't have, like I said, the idea. I had no idea what was like right or wrong. I couldn't tell if like what they were doing was good. And so I was just like, just let it go. And it wasn't until like I bled out so much money that I was like, I just commercially cannot afford to continue. And so I think the lesson there for me that I took out of that I always, and this is why inside of our community, we don't offer any done for you services until the brand has established, built their business, run their own advertising, and then we can kind of help them to do that because they know what we're doing, right? It's not like you've never done anything before and here you go. Because it's just like it's such high risk in that particular kind of design. And so I think I guess like the lesson from that was like learn what you do, learn exactly how to do those things, and then if you're going to delegate it, at least you can actually manage them properly and understand what good looks like. Yeah,
Absolutely. I actually had the same problem in the past. Like literally, if I was to think about it, same thing. But what I learned from it was I would probably hire someone for something that I have a good understanding on versus the opposite. So same thing. I was really doing well in terms of media buying and I was not good with email marketing. I hired an agency, paid them a big fee, and I was not understanding anything. So they just set up 4 campaigns and that's it. And I was really doing the same thing, thinking about like what is wrong, and I can't even know what is wrong. And that's a deadly mistake. If you don't know what you're doing and you pay someone to do it, how can you evaluate if it's working or not? They probably could do not like you have no understanding. And that's why I mentioned this like in my coaching, and even within the program we always talk about this. You need to learn the skills. But once you do that, we can help you scale by outsourcing. Outsourcing is good. You can't really get your business to 1 million plus unless you do some things, but only do things that you know. Don't hire for something that you have no idea about, because that's going to be a big problem. And this is the same thing. I faced this many times, and I was even like a little bit afraid. If you're a business owner, you probably know this feel where you don't trust anymore. You have a lack of trust. Hiring a person, you're like, hey, they're not going to be as good as the thing that I'm doing. And this is also, I think, something that you faced in the past yourself, where you don't trust anymore. Like you need to really evaluate the person, and you're probably going to use that. We're going to like hire slow and fire fast, which essentially is just we can't wait if they're not performing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Share with me another of the challenges you've faced that you think that people need to avoid if they hope to be tremendously successful.
Okay, this is actually a big one, and this would really resonate well with any person in an e-commerce space, because one thing, and this is actually one of my biggest, I would say, not necessarily deadly mistakes, but just scars in business, and I hope this would help some of you guys. So in the past, I was part of a business where it was almost like a partnership. I do the media buying, and it was the other person would do everything else in terms of logistics. And I trusted that the operation was good, right? The supplier was good, everything was good, and I was not monitoring PayPal as a platform, and I was not monitoring all the risk that would come from lack of tracking. And this is when we were scaling up, and I was very happy. The ROAS was very good. And then we had a PayPal message where they kind of reserved all the money right away. They were like, we're putting a reserve and we need trackings. And right at that level, I was scaling to the point where we can't cover the mess. Like if they hold the money, we can't fulfill the orders. We can't move things forward. So it's almost like I take away 300, 400,000. I need to find a solution for it. And for the business in that situation you mentioned, like a business in that very unstable, I would say, structure, it was almost like a deadly mistake and it's done. And we talked to a supplier, and this is when I was actually shocked because I was aware that we're looking to cheapen the cost, but I was not looking at the details in terms of really what would be the impact if we run things without the tracking and going with a shipping option that's very cheap. And I was just lost. Like I was literally just sitting and thinking about, I'm good with media buying, but this is a thing that I was not even thinking about, like a PayPal issue and money processing issues and them holding the money. So the lesson to think about is get your tracking in place. Make sure that you can track everything and have a full control on your business, because if you don't have that, even if you're the best media buyer, you're still going to be in a situation that's very critical. And I remember I was like, this is done. Like I can't really move anymore this business because I just can't do anything. It's one mistake that just put us in a situation that was not necessarily good at all. And this is, I think, a mistake that I would probably position now as very dangerous for e-commerce, particularly if you're scaling up and you're not looking at the tracking, you're not looking at PayPal. They can hold your money and they can really put you in a situation where if they put a reserve of 30%, 40% of what you have every single day, the cash flow would just die. And that's a very dangerous situation.
Mm. And it's funny because what happens is people always think that they want to scale fast. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I want to go from like 30 grand a month to like 300 grand in 4 months. But the reality of doing that is often like incredible waste. So many things break, usually at the cost of like customer service and fulfillment, massive delays, inventory kind of overruns. And so it's like, it might look good, but then it's like, at what cost? And I think that's something like I had a similar thing happen myself, where scaling very quickly, overrun in terms of pre-orders delayed. And it cost, I would say, $150,000 of disputes, refunds, kind of clawback payments, exactly the same thing. And then you look at it afterwards and you're like, geez, was that worth it? You know, should I have kept pushing so aggressively during that time, or should I have been a little bit more kind of pragmatic and a little bit more diligent with like the planning and the preparation? Because a couple of wrong moves and then your Facebook page feedback score goes down, you lose an ad account, you lose a PayPal, you know what I mean? It's like, it's very challenging to run your business. Like, it really is. And it's something to keep in mind. And I don't think it's ever something to stop you from wanting to grow, but I think it's just be conscious of some of these things that have happened to us so that you don't need to repeat those same aspects. Yeah.
Absolutely. And think about it like if you know about this already, then you can prepare well for it. So it's not something that's, I would say, it's negative or anything like that. It's more of knowing this, knowing what PayPal actually would ask about, that would have saved us so much time. Now, there's actually a nightmare version that I faced later on with this particular situation where I didn't respond PayPal properly and they started refunding the customers. And I took debt for that. I took some debt to pay. We took some debt to pay the kind of the supplier and kind of move things forward. And then we just had a massive PayPal kind of just refunding. So we were sending product totally for free, just because PayPal already refund. And this was the second, like I would say, or probably the second thing that just killed everything, was us taking a debt that even at that time PayPal was refunding customers. So we paid twice for the goods and for the funds. So really, this is something that would, like, I would say this, as I mentioned, it's one of my biggest scars that I don't necessarily like to share all the time, but it's still something that I would position as you need to be aware of this, like the risk of operations overall and how to navigate this. One of my clients, and actually we talked about this in the past, they scaled from 0 to 2 million. I was actually working with them on gradually scaling to avoid those spikes with PayPal. And they got to from 0 to 2 million. Right now they're like really scaling up. But that was really aware, like I was aware of this risk and I was really giving them all the direction on how to avoid these kind of massive mistakes that I did.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And I always like to think that in business, there's like the problems that you know, and there's the problems that you don't know. And like, these are problems that you know, the things that we're talking about. And so it's like, you're gonna navigate through the journey in the next 12, 16, however many months, years you're in business. And these things will likely happen. Does that make sense? And so I'm always thinking to myself, like, how could I, plot into the future? How could I see as many of these potential things that will happen? And how can I set up some contingencies for them so that when, not even if, but when they happen, I'm prepared, right? And then you've got the unknowns, which is like, you don't even know what's going to happen. You don't even know, like, the US tariff situation. You've got these things that you can't even predict. And then so at least if you take care of things that you know and you put little contingencies and plans and SOPs in place, when things go bad and maybe it's an unknown, unforeseen one, you're like, okay, all of this is in order. Let's go and take care of this aspect here. It's very, very like strategic kind of business thinking in terms of the way you plan and organize resources for these types of conditions.
Absolutely. And we talked about this. I think you had a coaching session with one of our clients, and you had a little bit of a messy situation in terms of cash flow, and you were literally telling her what to work on. And I think when you're building your business, problems might be from like all these different situations that you're not even aware of. In my opinion, one call could change your business.
Geez, that's a good that's a really good way to think of it, because even referencing back into that call, last night, having a conversation at this level, cash flow wise, these are the gaps that aren't even seen. And it's so funny, because the thing that I love about having calls like that is when you've gone through it yourself, you know exactly like the internal dialogue that goes into the person's brain. And so like I was on the call last night and I was like, okay, so these are some of the things that are probably happening right now. Particular language, particular problem, particular feeling. And she's like, that's exactly what's going on. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can't, and then it's like, okay, now you're safe. Now you can trust me. Let's put a plan in place so that this doesn't need to continue. I couldn't agree more in terms of the fact of like having that ability to have one quick call, one kind of strategy that can rewrite your trajectory and really change things. Yeah, it's very, very powerful. I think another one for myself that I recall back to was this was with the Bissou business, and I remember when we were initially trying to scale that business and get kind of traction initially from paid ads. It was like it would run kind of with a very strong repeat customer base all the time, 70%, 80% repeat over and over and over again, and every single time we would run paid traffic to cold audiences on Meta, for example, it would always just like bleed, and it would always be like really low ROAS, really low profitability. And it was like, geez, what do we need to do to get this thing good? And so what we were doing was we were like, pushing traffic to the site, selling the original product, selling it at like a 1.5x maybe, and the break even ROAS for that is like 2, and then like profit ROAS is like 2.6, 2.8, right? Which is still very much achievable in terms of how the business runs right now. Back then, 1.5, so we're kind of like just breaking even on ad spend, but with the product costs and shipping costs, losing money. And so we were doing these things, and I remember thinking to myself back in my earlier years and all of my intelligence and wisdom, thinking, well, maybe we need to have a subscription. Maybe people don't like this particular product, even though we've sold nearly like 80,000 of them, something ridiculous. Maybe we need to create a new product, a shampoo, a hair serum, some form of like moisturizer and cream. And then that can be the hero product we run paid ads from, and then we'll sell the Bissou on the back end. Maybe we'll create like entirely new landing pages and test, for example, like robes and candles. And so like we must have gone through months of like different testing, speaking to different suppliers, white labeling companies here in Brisbane, up in the Sunshine Coast, looking at different ways we could get different products, testing different like supplier samples from China, when it was like, just focus on the damn fucking ads. You know what I mean? And I look back to that, I'm just like, how much time was wasted? How much energy was wasted? And then what happened was we ended up finding this creator, and she worked with us for, I think, 2 months, 3 months. She did some content for us. She posted some of the content on TikTok, got some great traction with the content, grabbed the TikTok content that went viral, put it into Meta ads, and it just ignited that business, and we've been able to scale it consistently since then. And so it's like, when something's not working, it's very similar to the example that I mentioned earlier around multi-platform, but you can also do the multi-platform thing in terms of Pinterest and Google and TikTok, but you can also do it on your business, where people go, I've got to do the email, I've got to do the subscription, I've got to do the landing page, I've got to do a new product. And it's like, your business isn't even profitable. Like, just fix the damn problem, Yeah,
I think it's a big problem in general. So when you think about it, you have a business where one person would do everything. In general, when you're starting out, that's kind of what's happening. And you have this situation where you do 2, 5, 10 different things, right? And then maybe more. What's happening is you're taking your energy and just kind of putting it into all these boxes versus one. So a business launching, and probably this would resonate with any person with their e-commerce store, you're the thing that's driving the returns. If I was to take you and kind of put you in front of Netflix, we're done. Like it's like you're out of the competition. You don't have something that's working and it's just like bringing money. We need you. So when that's the case, and I can say Netflix here, which is a like an easy example, but that could be Netflix could be you looking at TikTok content thinking you're learning something, or you're learning nothing, and you're not even mastering anything. So for me, if you're starting out, if I was to compete with you, Sasha, I say we're running ads side by side, and you start doing these things, like just you start looking at TikTok, start doing these things, and I just keep running one thing, just meta. I'll probably be very dangerous for you in terms of a competitor because I will just master meta and you will be trying to do all these things. So most of the time, I wish really my competition would do this, like just what we're talking about here. Because if they do it, they're almost like they're gonna fail because I know they can't master one thing and really put in the time to be the best at the same meta or TikTok, whatever platform. So I think that's something that really scares me, the one man risk, and particularly when it's one person that would just do something and just take the business to a full direction that just doesn't make sense.
But it's also like if you think about I think the other aspect to it that's so valuable is if you think about the difficulty to just focus on one thing. Like if you think about like the market, and I always think about it from the entrepreneurial level. I'm like, you're the entrepreneur and you're sitting behind your business and you're like, okay, what am I going to do today? You know what I mean? What part of my business am I going to work on? And then you get into the driver's seat and you start looking around your Shopify dashboard. You go, oh, should I do landing pages? Oh, the email looks like it needs some work today. Oh, the meta account. Maybe I'll touch that thing. Oh, I've got this influencer messaging me on Instagram. So it's like the amount of stuff that you can do. And the challenge is that every single person faces all these distractions. So it's like the amount of willpower that you need to have to be like, no, I'm just doing this. Like it's insane. It's so hard. And so it's like if you can master that hard thing and it's funny because people also think like this strategy that we're talking about, the focus strategy or the one platform strategy or the one piece of content strategy, it's like we're trying to like lay breadcrumbs in a different direction to throw people off track. And secretly, you and me are sitting there with like all these secret pockets of trends and things that we do. And we secretly do TikTok and Pinterest and fuck every single damn platform. But I look at it from the perspective after doing so many of these things and then constantly being like tempted as companies grow with bigger and bigger temptations. It's like the hardest thing is to say no to that. And no to that product, and no to that platform, and no to that market. We're not going into the US market. And it's like, we just do this. It's so challenging. And so it's like, of course, everybody else, every other entrepreneur, every one of your competitors is going to get spun up in the land of distractions. And so it's like, if the only thing you do to be dangerous and lethal is do one platform and just do it with one product in one market, I'm like, you're already so far ahead of so many people because of the difficulty level of it. It's so powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And think about like I was on a coaching session. A person was like, "I don't want to lose money every day." I'm like, probably you're losing it just you're not looking at your returns, your opportunities, the opportunity cost, and sometimes you don't think about it. Like, let's say you're running a business and you're thinking about, I'll spend some time. I'm not spending on ads. I'll spend some time learning about TikTok, which is kind of like a coping way to like, I don't want to get into the ad account. I don't want to do the painful thing. You're actually losing money by doing that because you're not thinking about the money you could have been making and also the time it's going to take to fix something and the time it's going to take for you to kind of come back to baseline after this thing, right? So I think about it, if I was to really give someone a big advice, it's going to be think about like your like in general your moods, right? And if you face something bad, there's going to be a drop, right? It's like a strong drop. And the ability to come back to that regular level, that's actually that's a skill on its own. If you have a business where things are not working or they're working super well, you might be kind of changing a little bit things and doing things and you kind of look like you're losing in terms of that mood. You going back to that level and mastering the skill and doing the right thing, that's very complex. And I faced this many times where we have a very bad week and we kind of have this drop. The next thing I talk to the owner, he's like, I want to do this big change. I'm like, why? Just because of that massive drop. They're not back to baseline. I'm already back to baseline. Like, I know it's a bad week and I'm looking at the next week. And he's really, I want to change everything. Like, that doesn't make sense. It's because I didn't evaluate this loss, I would say, of momentum and of their mood. So I want you to really think about you being neutral in your business and making the right decision consistently and focusing on one thing at a time. If you master this, and no one is mastering this, if you master this, you're going to be extremely dangerous in business. And I'm trying to work on this myself. And I know you're working on this as well, but it's really difficult.
Oh, It's incredibly difficult. I think it's like my life work, I would say, is to do that. And as you grow, again, as I said before, you just have increasing levels of like temptation and potential things that look so good. And you're like, I should really try that. And you're like, no. Oh, it's incredible. Share with me another one. I think we probably have time for one more each before we kind of wrap this up. So share with me one, and I've got one final one that I wanted to share here as well with you, but give me one more.
Absolutely. And by the way, and like I think in this episode, we probably saved every entrepreneur there like so much money. Like I'm thinking about bankruptcy. You're probably going to be like, hey, thank you. I'm not going to be bankrupt. You're going to be like, thank you. I'm not going to have no access to my media buying. Thank you. I'm not going to do the wrong links and lose so much money. Right. So many things that I think about in this session. So one thing I would talk about would be the trademark, like trademark issues in general. This is not a big problem, but when you take a name or a domain where you just don't double check anything in there, or even there's a patent, that's dangerous sometimes. I don't actually recommend that you register something at all. That's not something I would do, but I would really recommend you look at, is there any patent that's registered somewhere where it might be a problem, specifically when it's your competitor, when you see that they have like a specific product that's very unique. It might be like something that they have already kind of like put in like a pattern. It could be design, it could be utility. And this is something that we faced when we took a product with a very unique product. We run the ads, we were making a lot of money. And then my client actually messaged me, hey, we have this email. And he just forwarded to me the email. It was a demand letter. And I was like, what? What is actually demand letter? And I spent so much time, and this is when I mentioned like you lose the momentum. So I was really like, I paused like everything, and I was looking at like what's the risk legally and what's happening. And I was just not aware of trademark, patent, anything like that. And this is what I learned is you need to double check. Now it's not expensive. And actually in our coaching, and I mention this all the time, I don't want you to do NDAs or anything like that. I don't think actually there's a value from that. I just believe that you need to double check your competitors just in terms of domain name and in terms of if there's a patent that you should be aware of.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing where it's like, it's not that big of a deal, but if it is, it's a really big deal. You know what I mean? It's like most of the time it'll never, ever, ever come back around. I mean, like it's like my position. Any and all of the companies that I've built never trademark, never copyright, never patent until start to get to a certain level of sales, then trademark, then copyright. You know what I mean? It's like after that level, when I have something to protect, then I'll protect it. But I do agree with you in terms of like the requirement around checking, making sure you're not going in like copying, pasting someone's name of their existing business. I think that's really where the challenge lies. Yeah.
Absolutely. There are also like small things that I did like in this category where I thought that, for example, let's say Coca-Cola, if I was to add in the or something before, that should be okay. And I was actually not aware of, you need to be very much, you need to Google, see that, and make sure that you don't, get into trademark issues. But as long as you're unique and you have something that's not necessarily in the market, then you should be good. This is just general trademarks.
Exactly. The last thing that I wanted to share here was, and this probably leads me into, I'd say the overarching theme of this session here has really been like what to focus on, prioritization. Really, like I'm listening to some of these things we're talking about, and most of the time it's a composite, or it's I guess corollary of being very distracted and focusing on the wrong things, or being underprepared. You know what I mean? Like underprepared for ad accounts, underprepared for cash flow, underprepared for inventory. And so this thing is definitely like an extension of, I would say, the prioritization aspect on my side. It seems like I need some, I don't know, maybe I need to speak to a therapist about this or something. So the last thing for myself, I recall the idea of running this big kind of giveaway campaign. And the lesson in this that I always think about is just like, again, similar to what I mentioned at the start, like focus on the main thing. And so like if meta ads are your main acquisition platform and that's where you get all the conversion from, just do that. And that's where you'll get the most like shortest cash conversion cycle, meaning money in, money out, money in, money out. And that's like a good economical business that you can scale. What you don't want is like money in, money out, and it takes like
never see it.
3 weeks, or maybe it doesn't even return. And so what I did was I set up this big kind of giveaway campaign. I partnered with some local vendors here on the Gold Coast that ran like boating trips, covered flights, travel, accommodation, all the things for people who entered it into this thing. ran this giveaway for about 5 weeks, hyped it up. It was $500 cash, a trip on this charter boat, all these great things. And I remember being like, this is going to be incredible. But the question that I always like look back on that I didn't ask myself is just like, when does the investment that you put into this campaign return? You know what I mean? Because you get so swept up in, oh my God, this is going to be so good. I'm going to speak to that person. I'm going to call them right now. Oh, I better see if they've got the tickets. Oh, I want to see if I can get a discount on the boat. And then it just becomes like this like spiral. And then it's not until you take a moment back, and this is what you mentioned earlier, one call with a coach, one call with a strategist that can challenge you on these things. And next minute you're like, what am I doing? I had a conversation with very similar to this. My dad actually, and he said to me in this massive big flurry of a conversation, he's trying to build this company at the moment, and he's in this like product development stage. He wanted to go and fly over to Thailand or something to take the product that he's kind of developing and meet with some of the engineers and people and see it in person, look at the prototypes, all this stuff, and then eventually get to the point where he was able to sell the product. And I remember he called me and he was like, hey, like, is it possible for you to cover my travel to Thailand? I'm like, what's the point of you going to Thailand? Goes on a big story, tells me how important it is to go to Thailand. It's very urgent, needs to be done by tomorrow. Flight's got to get booked, people waiting in Thailand, very important people. And I was like, just challenge and challenge and challenge in terms of so many things that he was not seeing. By the end of it, he's like, this is the most stupid thing ever. Why would I go to Thailand? I haven't even got proof of concept. I haven't even got people that would agree to pay me money. And it was just like a massive waste that was potentially about to be invested, and I think about what I did there with that same situation, ran this big giveaway campaign, invested thousands of dollars into advertising to generate like hot leads that would love to participate in this giveaway to generate sales. And I'm like, so you just spent 6 weeks, you distracted your team, you put them all over the place, you spent time on phone calls speaking to random people around the Gold Coast to see if they can take your winning person on a boat trip. And then you took all that time and energy away from your business, your current performance went down, and then the campaign didn't work and you didn't even break even. And I'm like, what's the point? So it's like these things that you just get so excited about. And I guess like the takeaway from this whole session here is like the power of sessions like this, or the power of somebody in your corner that sees things that you don't see. Like what you said before, the amount of money that we would have saved people through this episode, like I'm like, I can quantify hundreds of thousands of dollars to these mistakes that I've just shared here. Like genuinely, I genuinely think I could go into bank statements and be like, all of that, 40,000, all of that, 120,000. Like I genuinely could capture those things. I'm sure you could do the same. This is insane to think of. Like, I wish I learnt these things myself. And it's just it's incredible. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like if you actually think about not just the money law, like just not necessarily just what you're going to be losing, but potentially revenue not generated. That one thing you focus on, back to baseline, focusing on decision making and taking, let's say, the right decision at the right moment, which I believe if you have this, and something I see all the time, like what's the difference between this business doing 100K, this business doing $1 million? It's just decision making. They did better decisions and they kept doing the right decisions, and other businesses just do these kind of like multiple things that they expect to get to that next level.
Could not agree more, my friend. Very good. What are the main action items that you think from your end that people perhaps can capture based on this episode and implement? What do you think?
Absolutely. So first thing, I think you mentioned this in terms of like play it out. Play out things. Think about every scenario that we talked about, just play it out. Think about PayPal, play it out. Well, what would happen if you don't have tracking? So what would happen if you don't have a good structure? Ad account, play it out. You're spending how much per day? What would happen if Meta would disable your ad account? Play it out. So I think that's the thing that I would take as the main thing. Play out the events. The example with your father, you mentioned everything. When you play it out, you can actually see what would happen. And if you're prepared and you know these things like they potentially could happen and you know how to face them, you don't have any problem. You're going to really make a lot of money. And on top of this, you're not going to be as much stressed as, when I mentioned this is not easy, I actually never forget these things. Like they stick, like it's a lot of pain. It's not an easy experience. And that's the goal here. It's really growth without that pain.
Yeah. And then I think just to add to it as well, what you mentioned, like the play it out aspect is so powerful. I do it often myself and think about it like, I always think about it from the perspective, it's very similar, just different language, where it's like, what's this going to look like in the next 2 years, 10 years? Like, what happens if I extrapolate this current trajectory? Am I happy with the outcome? And then it's like, I'm really happy with that. That seems great. Or it's like, this is going to get really bad. Probably need to make a change now. So could not agree more. And I think the other part to that is just, you can speed up so many things, and you can shortcut so many like losses or potential losses with somebody who's in your corner, like looking at things from a perspective that you can't even see. Like I've helped thousands of people. I know you've helped thousands of people, and the amount of impact, and it's exactly the same reason that I invest like hundreds of thousands per year into the same thing that I do. I help people, and then I invest myself a lot so I can shortcut the amount of gaps that I'm going to fall into myself, so that I don't need to have like the bumpy journey that most people do have. So I think somebody, whether it's a mentor, a coach, advisor, a community of people that can help you and be on the same journey, like the value is disproportionate in terms of what it does for your business growth.
Absolutely. You just think about it. Like you're going into a situation where you can work with someone that did the full thing. They know all the problems. They kind of can help you avoid the big ones, and at the same time they can tell you what to focus on. So for me, if you play a game and you know already how to, like, what is the next level, how to face the next boss. For me, e-commerce is the same thing. 0 to 10K, different problems. 10 to 50, you have different issues. 50 to 100, 100 to a million, you're going to face different problems or different bosses. I'll think about it like that. So it's really getting support and knowing how to tackle the next level.
Could not agree more. Fantastic episode. Look, if you've enjoyed this episode and the conversation that we had here, head on over to, whether it's our website, check out some content. If you do want to hear a particular topic discussed here on the podcast, shoot us a message. Or if you'd like any information about any of our services or consulting coaching programs that we have, you can find it all in the description below. Hamen, look forward to seeing you again next week and empowering forward with some amazing new strategies for entrepreneurs to crush it with their e-commerce business.
Amazing. Looking forward for it.